Hello and welcome to another episode of Off My Chest with Dr. Musangali. Now, I was watching a movie. You may have seen this movie. It's called Modern Love with Anne Hathaway. In one scene, she is talking to another person, and she makes the disclosure that she has been bipolar since she was 15. And the person she's talking to asks her, "How does it feel to tell me that?" And her response is just breathtaking. She says, "I feel as if an elephant just took one foot off my chest." So this is why I do this, because sometimes I feel like I have an elephant with a foot on my chest, and there are things I want to get off my chest. The thing in particular that I just want to get off my chest is something that I've been carrying around for a long time. And it was brought to mind again by some recent events, which I'm going to share. So people in Kenya, I know there are many people here who might watch this that are not in Kenya, but I'll explain in a moment. So last week, there was a video that went viral in the Kenyan social media space. It is a video of a quote unquote pastor, Johanna, and I hate that I'm mentioning his name because I never want to mention his name again. But he is a pastor who is performing. So this is what he says he's doing. He's performing an act of deliverance for a woman. So there's a woman whose husband has left her and gone to be with another woman by the name of Carol. So this woman who's been left by her husband seeks out the help of this pastor. And he has the brilliant idea that he is going to help her. And how is he going to help her? By having her assume the person of Carol, the woman that her husband has left her for. And so he's talking to her as though she were Carol. When the video shows, the woman is laying down and the pastor has one of his people, his congregation, recording this whole exorcist episode. And he is basically talking to the woman who now has assumed the body of Carol and trying to help her get rid of or be delivered of the spirit of seducing another woman's husband. What this pastor does is, so he has Carol admit to having gone to see a witch doctor, and he asks her, "What did the witch doctor do?" "Oh, he applied things on me. He put medicine here. He put medicine here." So he is then spraying her with oil to help deliver her from that spirit. What this man proceeds to do with the camera rolling, think about the brazenness of this. He puts his hands all over this woman. He is slapping her stomach. He puts his hands on her breasts, and he then goes on and he unties her skirt. She's wearing a wraparound, and he unties that. He puts his hands down her panties and proceeds to just molest her with the camera rolling. And while he's doing this, the woman who's recording the video is just yelling, "Amen, amen," in encouragement to the pastor as he does this. So I watched this video. I didn't want to watch it to the end because it pained me to view this. I just cringed as I watched it. But I decided I was going to watch it to the very end because this woman had experienced this to the very end. When it's done, this woman doesn't know what has happened to her. She thinks she's feeling better, but she shakes her head and thinks, "Oh my goodness, what just happened?" But as you watch it, she's in this place where she almost doesn't really know what's happening to her. And I don't know that she expected that this is what was going to happen. So this act of deliverance is really the quote unquote pastor taking advantage of a woman who is in desperation. This woman is in desperation because her husband has left her, and she will do anything. She is going to do anything that she can to bring her husband back to her. And of course, because of the fact that she's so vulnerable, she is desperate, she is easy prey to a predator like this. Because that's what that man is. He is a predator. He looks for easy prey, preying on people who are in desperate situations and taking advantage of them, like he proceeds to do with this particular woman, takes advantage of her because she's desperate enough to do anything that will help save her marriage. I know a thing or two about that. I've been through that sort of thing myself as well. And maybe that's why this spoke to me so eloquently. Well, eloquent is not the term really, but it just really spoke to me very strongly, because I saw this and I saw a woman that was desperate, and a man who is in a position of power, perceived authority, which in this case has been bestowed to him by virtue of his position as a religious authority, and he has utilized his position to take advantage of people who are in need. Two things here. I will not totally absolve the woman of the responsibility, because she put herself in this place, right? She brought herself here, and she allowed herself in some ways to be subjected to this kind of behavior. At the same time, even as I say that, I'm very aware that that's victim blaming, and I don't want to do that, because she didn't sign up for this. I don't believe this woman knew what she signed up for. And if she did, there's perhaps just the hope. When you are desperate, you will hope and hold on to anything. So there's, several things to be taken from this, that as women, as people generally, just to be mindful, to guard against putting ourselves in situations where we are driven by desperation, to make decisions that would put us in places where we are compromised. And so surrounding ourselves with individuals who can check us, and also checking ourselves. So that's one on the part of this woman. For this man, there is absolutely no excuse that he would do what he did. And in fact, the thing that irks me so much is that even after this thing aired, the episode went live on, viral in so many places, he stands by his word, by his actions. There is not an ounce of remorse. When he has been interviewed, he says, oh, this is what I do. I've been doing this for the last 15, 20 years. What he's confessing to is that he's been taking advantage of people, I'm sure mostly women, for the last 15 years. And this man is still walking and supposedly confessing and taking cover in scripture that he has obviously interpreted in a way that will benefit him and his perverted motivations. So first of all, he should not be walking around. He should be subjected to a thorough investigation of all of his actions. But here's the thing. This is not an isolated incident. Well, he confesses to doing this forever. And he also says he's going to continue doing it. Just the thorough impunity of it. He's going to continue doing this. But he brought to mind many other situations where women mostly, have been taken advantage of. Women who are powerless, who are in situations where men who are in positions of authority will take advantage of their position to use these women, to molest these women, to sexually abuse them. I was taken back to something. I'm going to say something that may be controversial, but I have to get it off my chest because I've been carrying this with me for more than 30 years, more than 35 years, actually maybe more than almost 40 years. I am 52 years old, going on 53. I went to primary school in my village. Karogo Primary School is the name of it was the name of my school. I was among the youngest kids in my class. So we had grade 1 through 7. I remember this from about this when I was in standard 5, which would be about 5th grade here. I was 9 going on 10. I was 9 going on 10. So I was really young. But in my class, I had classmates who were older, because what used to happen then is that before you could advance to the next grade, you had to pass an exam, and there was the practice of retaining kids in a grade and not advancing them to the next level. If they didn't pass, they would be retained. So what ended up happening was that some boys and girls, they were 15, 16, and still in primary school because they had been retained over and over and over. Sometimes we'd retained and even taken a grade below your current grade. So I had classmates that were older. I had girls in my class that had developed. They were experiencing puberty. So they had their period, they had developed breasts, the boys were growing, a beard, you could see that. But I was very young and naive, and there were several other girls in my class, other students in my class that were young. We had a teacher, and I have often thought about this, and I shall name him because things like this they flourish in silence. We had a teacher, his name was Mr. John Jure. Oh my God, even as I say his name, I cringe at this. But people who know about this will know the name, because what this man did was he absolutely abused his authority. He abused his position as the deputy headmaster in my primary school. What this man would do, so he came to class. I don't even remember the subject he taught me, honestly. I think it may have been religion. I don't remember. But he came to class. So if he came to class, I remember this from standard 5, standard 6, standard 7. He came into class. The first thing he did was walk around looking at people's exercise books. Maybe we have had an assignment, so he's walking around to see if you have done the assignment. He would pick on individuals who had not completed the assignment to his satisfaction. And if you were an older boy, then you got several strokes of the cane. If you were a younger girl like myself, then you got caned as well. If you were an older girl, and by older I mean maybe they were 13, maybe they were 14 or 15, they had breasts. You did this thing called hide yourself. Hide yourself. So let me explain what hide yourself was. When Mr. Jura came into the classroom, the door opened in, and the door was placed in such a way that it formed a little triangle between the corner of the wall. So the door formed a triangle. So the door would open like that and it would close this way. It would open this way, so that there was a little area that was behind the door. If you were told to hide yourself, you went to that triangle, you opened the door and you went behind it so that you were behind the door in that little triangle. And he stood in front of us, in front of the class, facing the rest of us that were not hiding ourselves. And he put his hand in the door, behind the door. There's a girl back here who is hiding herself. And what he would do, I don't know because I never was there, but I know he was fondling those girls. He was touching their breasts. You see his hand go up like that. You see his hand go all the way down. And you see him sometimes, I imagine the girls are cringing and pulling back. And you see him sort of reaching further in so that he can touch them. And as he's doing that, I mean, think about it. We are sitting there. We're just watching him. I didn't understand what was happening. I knew that what was happening was wrong. I knew something terrible was going on. The boys, some of whom may have been talking to the girls, right? They're watching their girlfriends or girls that they like be molested right in front of them by this man. And I will never forget this as long as I live, because whenever they were done, they would come out of there and they would be like this. They'd walk back to their desks, face down, eyes down, just kind of like sideways, because they were embarrassed. They were deeply embarrassed and ashamed of what they had just experienced. This didn't happen once or twice. Sometimes it would happen 3 times in the same class period. Different girls. At the end of class, he would have one of the girls collect all the books and take them to his office, so that then he would have time with them and molest them in the privacy of his office. This went on for years. It went on for years. It makes me livid to talk about it. It makes me so angry to talk about it. Here's what happened. So all of these girls, they were sexualized very early. I can just imagine the confusion for them. Because you know what? When you're a teenager, your body inevitably responds to that. Like, you may feel yourself responding in some ways. Maybe it feels good, but it's confusing because you know this shouldn't be happening. It's happening in front of your peers. You're embarrassed in front of your peers, right? So these girls, then, one of the things that I noticed is that many of them would end up engaging in sex fairly early on, and they would get pregnant. They didn't go on to high school. Many of them would not finish primary school as well. They would get pregnant even as they were in school. And I look at them and I know that the one thing that these girls had in common was this man's hand. I go home now and I see them in my village. I see these women now who are my age, who are mothers, who are grandmothers. They didn't go past standard 7. Many of them didn't go to high school. And if they went to high school, they didn't finish high school because they went on and they started their families really early at the age of 15 and 16 and 17. And I look at these women, and somebody could look at them and say, oh, they were lazy. Oh, they were promiscuous. They were this, they were that, or the other. But I know myself, I know that the reason they started engaging in sex is because they were sexualized early on by this individual, by this depraved man, that he sexualized them awakened the sexuality in a way that at a time that they were not ready to handle that. And as a result, he really truly put an end to their journey, to their educational journey. And this man lives on. I keep wondering, how did the teachers in my school not know that this was happening? How did nobody know that this was happening? How come nobody said or did anything? How could they not have known that this was going on? And part of it, I also think maybe a lot of female teachers, maybe they sensed it, but they did not feel that they were in a position where they could challenge him. Because again, remember, he was the deputy headmaster. They may not have felt that they could challenge this man's authority without losing their own jobs, without putting their jobs on the line. So he continued to do what he did, and checked, unabashed, brazen, abusing girls every single day. So I say this to say that the culture where men get away with doing things like that has to end. This was 15, 30, 40 years ago. But it pains me to know that this is happening. So seeing this pastor do what he was doing reminded me, it took me back to a place in my primary school days, because it's the very same thing. A man who has no shame, who has no qualms about abusing another individual, right? It took me back to that place. And though those incidents are 40 plus years apart, it's happening on a regularity and a frequency that we would hate to even imagine. We would hate to admit. This happens. It's happening in our very own communities, in front of our eyes, if we will just open our eyes and look. So again, as I often do, this is a call to action. To be aware, to be alert, to listen, to look at the people that are in our lives and ask questions about what is going on for them. So many of these girls, we might blame them, like they were this, they were that, or the other, without really asking the question, what happened to you? Because something happened to them. Something happened to them. They didn't start out as promiscuous young girls. They didn't start out their primary school lives thinking, I'm gonna go on and start having sex and have a baby and drop out of school. They didn't start out that way. But somebody else, someone came into their life that intervened in a way that doomed them to a life that is not what they had hoped to have for themselves. So we have to challenge this. If you watch this and you are someplace where you know something like that is happening, if you watch this and you're someplace where you know this is happening to you, I tell you, I encourage you, you have to talk. Things like this thrive in silence because the victims are often shamed. You feel shame about having an experience like that. The person that is perpetrating this also thrives in your silence. They count on your silence so that they can keep doing this thing that they're doing, so that they can continue to exploit, they can continue to molest. So silence, we have to break the silence. We have to talk. So if you are experiencing something like this, if you're experiencing any kind of abuse, someone taking advantage of you in ways that you don't, if you have something happening that you're questioning, this doesn't feel quite right, check with someone, because you know what? Chances are it doesn't feel right because it is not right. And you shouldn't have to go that way alone. There are people that you can reach out to and talk about your experience. Check with somebody. This is what happened. What do you make of this, right? That you don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to suffer shame alone and take on a burden that should not be yours. And I speak to you men, hold each other accountable, because we had men in our school. We had a headmaster. I would want to absolve this man and say he knew nothing, but I don't know that I can really say that. How could you not have known that something was terribly wrong? All the other men that were teachers in my school, how could you not have known that something was wrong? There were signs, there was evidence. There had to have been signs that were right in front of you that you either didn't want to pay attention to, or that you saw and decided, this is gonna cause me too much trouble, so I'm just gonna ignore it and act as if it's not happening. You have to be allies. You have to do better. We have to do better and speak up when we should, not let people suffer in silence. So this is me angry. And I hope that maybe by getting that off my chest, I'm passing that on to you so that you are called to action. You are called to be more alert to what's happening on in the lives of people around you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Off My Chest with Dr. Musangali.